All right, it is time. I assume a few others will appear, but until they do, it's just us. Welcome everybody to our first of our March sessions. Today is an open session where we'll just talk about how things are going, what successes you've had, questions you have for each other. I know from the other coaches that people have been hard at work plugging along at the various activities, which we really appreciate. And it sounds like there's progress being made, but there's also just, it's a little overwhelming, a lot to do, a lot to think about, lots of change to consider. So would love to hear what is a success. I'm going to ask everyone here, and it can be simple. It can be just a very simple success or a really extensive success. What's a success somebody has had that over the past month? And it doesn't have to be about future ready, but if you have a future ready success, that would be great. I'm going to start because I only think it's fair. And the success I've had is we have a no cost extension from IMLS. We're going to have a year 4 of future ready and be able to add another cohort. I know I'm so excited, and do some statewide initiatives as well and some other conferencey things. So that's our success. It's not just my success, it's everybody's success because you've helped to make this happen. So who's got a success to tell us about?
Before that, Linda, what kind of extension did you say it was called?
So it's called a no cost extension. So we have some funds and they will allow you an extra year as long as you're not asking for more money.
Okay.
So, and we're changing some of what we said we would do. So we had to get not just an approval to go for another year, but to change some of the way the funds will be spent. So thanks, Diane. Okay. Kate, did you raise your hand?
I did.
Hey, go.
Because I'm literally 10 minutes from getting back from presenting at Rotary. So like, I'm very like, yeah, I'm kind of high on that experience right now. So I would love to share.
Tell us more.
Especially because I've run into some frustrations, with trying to figure out how to approach this and find time for it and like all kinds of other things, and how much to like guide the process, how much to keep open, like all of that. And then as I was telling Abby and the other folks in my little team, I've also ran into some resistance from my director because she was like, wow, this is a really nice concept that will never happen. Because she's like, we just have to design the thing and make it happen. Like, people will give us money or show up to guest speak at things, but people are not going to like help us create something. Like, she feels like that's been the pattern in the community. And so I told her, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that because those are that's not the parameters of the grant, and let's try something new and see what happens. And her response was like, okay, that's great. Go ahead. Like, if those are the parameters of the grant and that's what you want to do, then I'll support you with that. But her like sort of demeanor around it was like, oh, that's so cute. Like, let me know when that doesn't work out. We'll put something together. Like, and so that was kind of frustrating to deal with. But I went to Rotary today and presented, and like at the end of my presentation, like I shared all my background learning and where I'm at with things and what this driving question of the grant is. And, got to the end and said, what is this going to look like? And I said, the answer is we don't know yet because it depends on who wants to come to the table. So I'm here to ask you if you want to come to the table. Like, and that could be as little as just coming to have a 15-minute conversation with me, or I'll come to you. Or it could be as much as, hey, I've got an idea for a thing we could actually do. And like, it could be anywhere in there. And they were really excited. They had a lot of ideas to share, and several people are like, hey, let's meet. And so I thought that was great. And they're like, hey, why aren't you a member of our club yet? I was like, I'll get right on that in all my spare time. And the school superintendent was really excited. So he wants to meet in the next couple of weeks. He was like super excited. And I was very careful in my presentation to talk about what I was aware of that the school was already doing, and that the library would like to augment that and help the school bring it into the community further. So he was super happy with that, and he wants to know if I'll run for school board in the fall, which I was like, I don't know about that, dude. Like, how about we just do this first? But I was like, yay! Everybody was like super pumped about it. So like that was really great. So like I'm just hoping that all of that is gonna come together. And I've also had a couple of one-off contacts with a couple of other people, one from our like joint board of education services office, and she does vocational rehab with older students, but she's like, hey, we need to get this to younger kids, and if that's something you're doing, I'd love to have a conversation around it. So that was great there. So so I have a feeling my calendar is going to fill up in the next couple of weeks, which is fantastic. So that's good. And then also, like, I've been talking to these guys who just opened a Zen center here in Bayfield. It's called the Zen Cowboy. And they've run into some problems integrating into the community because they're a gay couple who spoke here at the library and had two guys show up and start yelling at them. And we actually ended up having to call the marshal's office. And so like they're actually looking for ways to integrate into the community better and to be like, hey, we're normal people. And like we want to contribute meaningfully to the community. So so that like feels like an opportunity there as well. So anyway, so like in the last like 2 weeks, I've gone from, I don't know where this is going, to like, hey, all these people are actually interested in maybe making something happen. So that's been awesome.
Applause, applause. Hey, hey, success. That's great. Who else? And if you have any thoughts for or questions for Kate, we can do that too, but let's hear about more successes. And I love that Chris is in her car. Do you see, everybody see this? This is awesome. Hi, Chris.
Be safe, Chris.
Yeah, right. Yeah, don't take your hands off 10 and 2, just like you can. Who else would like to tell us success? And it can be the coaches too.
I'll talk about what I've been doing.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
you can go, Karen.
Oh, who was it? I'm sorry. I thought I saw Karen. Who else?
Well, Karen raised her hand, but it was Josie who spoke up.
Karen, you go first.
Okay. So I met with my superintendent and assistant superintendent. They came to the library and we had about an hour's worth of talking and stuff. And Pennsylvania already has a Future Ready program. It's in the school district and it's K through 12. And and the guidance counselors put it together, and there's several different components to it. So one of the school board members had brought me the binder that had all the information for kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, what they have to do and what the guidance counselors are responsible for, what the teachers are responsible for. So I have a great idea of what the school of what they want their outcomes to be. So we talked about how they're meeting those outcomes. I talked about specifically wanting to work with middle school kids. And then I said, so that we're not recreating the wheel 6 ways to Sunday, is there a spot that you guys feel like you're not filling that maybe the library can focus on? And they immediately said, yes, we do have holes. And they want to do stuff with focusing on entrepreneurship. They're like a big brother. Oh, what's that? So yeah, it was just, they were very excited to know that there was another organization in the community that wanted to work with kids, and that my organization is, I'll call it neutral, in the sense that we're not, we don't have a greater message beyond this, you know, and we don't have, I'm willing to work with the school and bring in all these other groups. So whether it's Rotary or Lions or, you know, the YMCA or the police department or whoever. And so we're working on entrepreneurship stuff, but that is still this big cloud. Like there's no shape to that cloud yet. But that was my conversation last month. And I was excited to sort of, I don't know, be given a direction where I know that there's a need. I was glad that someone else had identified a need, and, you know, we can work on that together. So
That's awesome. I love that someone else has identified the need, because that, I think, is what we're talking about. Abby, were you going to say something?
I was. I actually really like that it's a cloud, because it is fluffy and esoteric right now and it can be completely abstract. And yeah, it gets to form with the weather that arises. I really like that. And Allison, clouds are super cool.
All right, Josie.
Yeah. So I went to Manteca High School last week, the week before last, sometime during this month, to do a site visit. And they're doing this program called Get Focused, Stay Focused, which we're going to implement at our school. And it's all built around skills-based education. And the idea behind it is like their program, they start as freshmen and take this kind of intensive skills-based class and learn. It's really about college and career readiness. And so I think I'm going to be teaching the class to freshmen next year. And so this year, what I'm going to do is go work with, well, first of all, I guess my success was having the opportunity to go kind of see that in action. And it was really inspiring and really encouraging and amazing to see these students that were not just thinking about colleges, but really thinking about their futures and their careers. And they build this whole plan about how, you know, like what classes they need to take to build their skill levels to go into careers that they're interested in. So if they're interested, and it's not just like pushing college, which I think especially in a high school setting, we always ask like, where are you going to go to college? And kind of changing that, doing that paradigm shift. So we're no longer asking where are you going to go to college, but like, what are your goals? What are your plans? So anyways, I'm going to be teaching that at the high school, and this year I'm going to go into the middle school. So I'm starting to connect with those freshmen that I have next year and get them geared up to come in. And I also really liked that TED fortune cookie, just about like being able to like start asking, like having students ask those questions, like what do you do, like what do you do on a typical day, how much do you get paid, what do you like about your job, what do you hate about your job, what did you have to do to get to where you're at. So that's it.
I think the fortune cookie thing resonated with a lot of people, which is great. Ellison, do I keep interrupting you? I feel like you were going to say something. No? All right.
No, I was just nodding.
Okay. All right. Who else?
Carla here. You don't have a face with a name, but I'd love to tell you about, mine is almost parallels Karen's. I went to see the Dean of Students at the local middle and high school. And before I knew it, the superintendent was in the room and they were planning a character education program that I could help them create and use literature involved in it and all of that. So it would run all the way from 5th through 8th grade. So I felt sort of overwhelmed. I said, well, let's think about this. And I came back and Karen, my library director, says, we can't spare you for that long, what it sounds like it could possibly be. So it's also out there, you know, still trying to figure out what's going to work best with the school. That is one thing. And the other piece is that I met with, well, I do an SAT prep since October every week. And so I got to know high school students personally through that. You know, you get really close. And also I have a teen advisory board. So I put it to them and I asked them about it. I said, do you think that you know, developing good character, something that we could meet with on a regular basis would be a good idea. And I got really mixed reviews from the kids. The high schoolers said, no way. I said, even if it's approached with a positive, you know, like how to be a friend, you know, how to support others, you know, that kind of thing. And they said, no, they didn't think that that was a good idea. So just from a high school student, I'm telling you what they said. So that's what I've done so far. And then the middle school kids said, could you please come in and break up some of the fights? That was their comment. Could you please break up some of the fights? So the frustration, does anybody else see that? The frustration with educators and, you know, how to reach these kids? They just seemed really, really frustrated. Nothing?
Well, I have things to say, but I don't want to interrupt. Karen, go.
I guess I was thinking, this totally is not future ready, but it brings to mind your conversation. I just recently had a conversation with a friend who is a student teacher, and he's also he's a young man, and he sits on our borough council also, and so he's actually really good friends with my kids. But we were talking, and he said that he was voicing frustration to me about the absolute apathy of the kids.
Yeah.
And then as a response, he's found so many of the teachers and colleagues are walking around kind of angry. And he said, I feel like, he said, I'm actually questioning whether I want to be a teacher. And he said, it's not so much the kids, but I'm also kind of leery of some of the adults, the teachers and the administrators. And I wondered if it was just that time of year. Like, are we just, but I didn't know, and I know that this is totally not future ready oriented. When you said that, I was like, oh, I kind of have sensed that frustration here, but just not personally, but just from conversations of other teachers. So I don't know, that time of year, are we bored with winter?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, one thing that came up as far as when I did this previously was we talked a lot about how soft skills and how you can't necessarily teach a skill like customer service to employees, but you can teach and demonstrate empathy to younger people. And that, you know, takes a lot of time and patience, but it also kind of goes back to what Lakeisha talked about with us previously. And so if you are encountering that type of resistance, maybe framing it more around these lack of skills that you're seeing as far as, you know, empathy within young people and breaking up fights, that ultimately those skills are going to lead them to that first job or, you know, that interview that really went well. So, and that's something that I've worked on within my project too. So
Thank you.
That helps. I know it's a really big conversation, but to kind of bring it back to what your task at hand with, you know, meeting them was is a good way to bring it back to that.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
There was just one more piece to this. I asked the SAT kids why more didn't take advantage of this program, and, you know, the SAT prep, and they said most of them just don't care. You know, the apathy is there. They don't really see themselves, you know, expanding their education outside of high school. Last night I saw a presenter, a historical speaker, and he talked about how he met someone and learned about a historical event that happened that he knew nothing about. He was a Verizon executive, and he ended up becoming this historical speaker because he was so turned on by what he found out from, you know, like a spark that just hit him. and he does 100 different presentations around, you know, our area. That's what I want to see with kids, is that spark. And, you know, maybe the character ed piece isn't the way it should be going. Maybe it's more putting them in touch, like we've said, with mentors, unusual careers that they wouldn't have thought of before. So it just kind of, that just helped last night a little bit. And plus, when you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't sleep, your mind starts going all over the place. But anyway, I just wanted to share that too. That was really positive.
Josie, do you have a tie-in for the work you do with the social justice piece or civic engagement kind of stuff?
So actually that's something that we were working on today in class. And, you know, I feel like there is a sense of apathy, but like Lisa said, it's gotten more so over time. But I was super apathetic when I was in high school too. So I just feel like as I get older, I'm like, why are kids so apathetic these days when I'm passionate? But today, so this week I introduced a passion project to my class that's built around social justice. So they're starting to develop projects and they're super excited about it. So I think really giving them kind of the framework to figure out what they're passionate about and then build a project on those passions is really, like, earlier this week when I was kind of developing that project, I was like, oh, I'm so scared they're just going to be like, I don't want to do this. And they were so excited about it. They were so excited about, like, being able to figure out. And it does tie into Future Ready, because this is exactly what we're doing. I'm like, find your passion and then go for it. It's nebulous. Like, I don't care if you get it wrong. They're like, well, do I need to do a PowerPoint? I'm like, maybe. But yeah, I mean, what Karen was saying just about, like, the way that kids behave and administration behaves, I don't know if it's necessarily the time of year. It's just a very diverse group of people that you have to figure out how to work with. And we're all coming into this with a bunch of different ideas and ideas about teaching and ideas about how we should deal with punishments, you know, like that's kind of what is going on at my site right now. Like, I have my administration is very, like, rigid, like, when a kid behaves badly, then we punish them. And then there's these other people that are like, we need to do a restorative practice type of approach. And then, you know, we're the hippies or whatever. That was a lot of talking. Hopefully it made sense.
No, that was great. Thank you. Abby and I are talking about nebulous clouds, which is perfect, right? Thank you, Abby. Abby used her skills to Google it. That's great. Awesome chat. Who else? Rochelle.
Yes, I can go.
Yay.
I recently met with our Montessori school that's preschool through 8th grade, and they do their grades differently. So it's not like 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. They combine grade levels in their rooms. So anyway, I met with 2 of the teachers and the school librarian, and we originally were thinking of doing an after-school program starting next fall. But after talking to them, it was discovered that most of the kids can't get to the school after school or stay after school and then get back home. So we decided to do a bigger, like, 1-day or half-day event for all the kids. So we're still in the planning process as to when and how this will all work, but it'll be fun, I think. Everyone's really excited about it. And the teachers are getting the kids involved as to who they want to come in for guest speakers, what kind of career things they want to talk about, and then we'll base it off what the kids want. So I guess that's what I've been doing lately.
That's great. That's awesome. That sounds like good progress. I'm sorry, we're also having this restorative approaches conversation in the chat. Kate, just so everyone knows, I love the analogies too, Abby. Can you explain what the restorative practices, people use different
Sure.
terms?
Yeah, and Josie can probably speak to this too, since like she's got this going on with her school system. But when you take a restorative justice, restorative practice approach to you know, things that are going on either in your library or like our school system is working on implementing it as well. The idea is not to punish the wrongdoer per se, but use it as an opportunity to rebuild community. And so to address the harm and to look towards restitution instead of punishment, and restitution in a manner that allows both the person who has done something wrong and maybe the person who has had something wrong done to them to both be able to come back into a sense of community within the whole. And so it's just a different way of looking at a justice system, because you know, our justice system is very punitive, and it's also actually, once someone is accused of a crime, like, and now I'm talking like courts, but once someone is accused of a crime, actually the victim like almost has no, like all of their power is taken away, right? With the exception of coming to testify, that's about it. But like their power in that situation is really removed. Everything's handed over to the system, right? And then there's, you know, punishment meted out, but like we can look at our recidivism rates, how well that's working, like what's happening in our like prison industrial complex. So this restorative justice model is a model about bringing all parties involved to the table. So bringing the government to the table because they have a vested interest in public safety, or so whoever the governing authority of the system is, basically, bringing the victim in to regain their power and heal from what's happened, bringing the offender in so that they have the opportunity to learn from and you know, and have that opportunity to make restitution for the wrong they've committed, and then bringing the community in as well, because the community has a role to play in that, in reestablishing like relationships within the community. So that's kind of like
it's all built in like building community. So the whole framework is based in building community, and there's all this research about excluding perpetrators from the community and the harm that does to both to the community and to the victim and to the person that committed the crime. So like in my organization, like a crime would be like vandalism, for example, but like by pulling that person out of the community, they never really learn to take responsibility for their actions. And in the restorative process, everyone comes to the table and you have a facilitated conversation about what happened and how you're going to repair the harm, repair the damage that was done. It's an amazing process.
Which I think fits with that conversation we had before, right? About apathy and, you know, students doing things as quickly as they can or whatever, because we have these attitudes, right? That we think of young people or anyone else. Restorative practices didn't start with young people, actually. So that was just an aside. Sorry.
But yeah, when I talk to my students about it, they're like, no, I'd rather just get suspended because it's quicker. And like, I'm like, yeah, but you don't learn anything from it. Sorry.
And that's why the schools continued to keep doing it, because it's exactly just what you said. It's easier. Our school would rather hire another SRO than to actually have to. So, I mean, that's the sad part is, you know,
yeah, it's a messy
for that cultural change.
Process. Yeah, you know, it is, it's more ambiguous, right? Because you don't actually know where it's going. You're not just applying a statute to a situation, right? Like, so it's this like grayer situation, and you know, people have to be willing to come to the table, and someone has to be willing to facilitate it. So it can also be an expensive process because you're paying for staff time to do that, as opposed to just being like, all right, you're out of here. Like, so it's really there are a lot of challenges that have to be overcome, I think, to institute restorative justice. And I've done a little bit of work around using it within a nonprofit that I volunteer with. But also there was a presentation at the YALSA symposium from a library that's using it as well. And we kind of take an informal restorative justice process here, in that, you know, we work with kids who've had behavior issues in the library, and then when we get to that point of restitution, like after that we're like, okay, like you're part of the library, we're not going to give you like continued crap about this thing because you've, you know, recognized your responsibility and taken the action you need to like make things right with like your fellow patrons and with the library staff. And so we don't necessarily have like sit down formal circles, but that is like sort of the philosophical approach behind like how I and Becky work with the teams whenever something comes up. So
that's awesome. I'm sorry, I'm the chat, Abby, I'm sorry. Abby and I had this chat going and I forgot where I was. But I'm wondering, because these kinds of topics keep coming up in Future Ready and working with middle schoolers. So I wonder if there's a project or something where it specifically fits together, right? The work we're talking about, because restorative practices help middle schoolers succeed in life, right? And so I'm just thinking about how these two pieces could fit together more specifically, as opposed to us just talking about it, right?
And it's like, I mean, it's like social emotional learning boot camp practically.
Yeah.
Like, go through a restorative justice process. It's going to push your like social emotional communication abilities and like getting in touch with your emotions, and like, you know, no matter where you're sitting, like what position you're sitting in that cycle, it's gonna push all of those things. And, you know, that self-regulation piece, because like, you know, when you come together in a restorative justice process, there has to be an agreement that you're going to maintain a safe space for that to happen in. So you can't get up and take a punch at the guy across the table when you get angry, right? So you gotta modulate that, you know. So it really is, it's like this super challenging, like takes that whole social emotional learning thing, and I think it really applies it in a I don't know, like in a healing manner, I think.
Yeah.
Really, potentially really healing community building manner.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is that everybody has to be willing to participate. Like you can't force somebody into a restorative facilitation, be like, you have to do this, because then it's not going to work. They have to want that alternative to suspension. Or
I think that's where a lot of the work comes, right? There's, you know, the circle itself happens and that takes effort, but there's all the work that happens that leads up to the circle, to bringing parties to the table, to, you know, negotiating what does everyone need for that space to be safe? What does everyone need to be able to trust the process? Do we have everyone's consent to participate in this? Like, that's all this groundwork that you have to lay before, you know, the actual, like interaction in the restorative circle begins to happen. Yeah, so it's very labor intensive, right? And it is very social emotional intensive.
Rochelle, I apologize. We jumped into that after we talked about your awesome work that you had done. So I really apologize for that, because it looks like you're moving forward. All right, so I'm gonna try and get someone for next week, because I actually haven't honed in on our person for next week, and I will see if I have a couple of ideas about who I would ask to do this. So I know that we have some experts, but bringing in someone else. All right, other positive experiences, successes you've had recently. How about a coach? Come on, coaches.
I just was thinking that it would, and I wrote that in the chat, but couldn't you set up like a program where you had a group of kids and you almost like had cards or situations where you said, okay, this is what happened. So-and-so just did this, or so-and-so did that. And this is, you know, whatever. And then walk them through the restorative process and why you're doing those types of things in a kind of an interactive, almost game way. Or, I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I just feel like it might lend itself to kind of an activity where you could lead them through that so they better understand what that looks like. And then they are probably more likely to apply that in their own lives.
Yeah, when I went to the training, that's what we did. They gave us scenarios, and there's no reason why you couldn't do that with kids. Like, you have a victim, you have a perpetrator, you have a facilitator, and then you have like the community members, and they do the scenario. So that, I mean, yeah, totally. That would be amazing. I love that idea.
Go forth and do it.
Okay.
And then tell us about it, or Allison.
Whatever it is, I want to know about it.
All right, successes, more successes.
I've got several. I had one of those, angels appear every once in a while. Somebody just came in to the library and had finished off a long-term volunteering for the community college foundation, and she said she was sort of at loose ends and looking for a project to get involved with that was meaningful. She used to be a teacher, and at the community college, she coordinated some mentoring programs and scholarship programs, and so it's a good fit with some of the future ready things. So I've been talking to her, and at the same time, I mentioned on the COP that I had made a connection with the middle school counselor who was supposed to follow up, and then she didn't follow up. And I've seen that before at the school, that, they start out like they're excited and then they just drop off. But we did get together for a follow-up appointment and actually put things on a calendar, and kind of what they're looking at is proposing that would tie in with Future Ready is next fall doing 3 different speakers at the school 6 weeks apart, and then in the spring doing some kind of everybody, all 8th graders in the gym, and do some sort of group festival thing. Not festival, but I think of it as the How-To Festival, if you all are familiar with that Louisville Public Library does. So there could be different stations with features of the Future Ready activities.
Diane, will you tell everyone what that festival is in case they don't know?
Yes. PLA, I saw a demonstration of it. Sacramento does one, I believe, but the one I heard about was Louisville Public Library. And once a year, apparently they have one of the big old Carnegie buildings. They bring together maybe 100 different presenters through a 6-hour time period. Don't hold me to any of these facts, but at one time there may be 8 different presenters doing a 20 to 30 minute session somewhere in the library, and it might be how to use chopsticks, or how to make how to do baby sign language, how to make musical instruments out of recycled materials. So you go in with this directory, and your family could split up and everybody go off to the different topics that interest them. So nobody's seen all of it. You just pick the ones that interest you throughout the day. And I love that idea. In fact, I had coordinated one here in Pottsboro, and then we ended up getting rained out because our building's not big enough. Who's going to carve with a chainsaw, and how to cook over an open fire, and just all kinds of interesting things.
It's a variation of a career fair or something, right? It's cool.
Well, and one of those videos we watched this week was what was it? The Openly Network.
Yeah.
It looked that way to me. Like there's a 3D printer over here and something over there.
Yeah. It also makes me think of Tyler's science thingy.
Mm-hmm.
Fair, whatever that was. Yeah, right. That thingy. What else?
Okay, I can share if you're ready.
Yep.
So I have finally identified our main partner, which is workforce development. I have a really good relationship with the director of that. And so we have developed what we're going to call a STEAM camp. The school's kind of focused on STEAM quite a bit. So starting next school year, what we're kind of working on is in August, October, December, February, and April, focus on a different aspect of STEAM. So science, technology, engineering, you get that. With demonstrations from people who are involved in that. And then do a big event in June that's going to talk about those different areas, what would be like a college degree type area or vocational type area, to kind of show them the difference between the both and that there are careers in either one of those. And it's going to go along with the summer reading theme for 2020, which is Imagine Your Story. But we're going to do a little extension of that. So it'd be Imagine Your Story for the future. So that's kind of what we're working on.
Who will I be in 2020 or 20? That's not that far away. 2020.
Who will I be in 2023?
2023. Which although for a middle schooler, 2020 probably seems like ages away, right?
Yeah,
imagine 2023. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
They're probably class of 2023.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or 24. Or 25.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Who else? Roxanne, Ashley, Eric. Chris is driving, so I don't know. Tyler. Successes? Tyler, I'll let you know. One of the people at the session said that she had been talking with some people who wanted to do a career fair, but she didn't think that was right. So I told her about what you did, Tyler, and she's like, that's it. That's what we're gonna do. So
I have a post future ready success that ties in with it. When I started the project a year ago, one of the big employers in my county is there's a Walmart distribution center and then a Walmart superstore. And I reached out to them about Future Ready, and you know, it was kind of that thing where they were like, well, we're interested, but we're busy, you know, talk to you later. And then they reached out to me this week and said, we remembered you and we're doing a new parent fair type day, and we'd like for the library to, you know, come and talk about just different aspects of just, you know, literacy with your children and just how the library can support these, you know, new families that are working. So that was an unexpected surprise. Doing that.
they remembered you.
They did, yes.
Awesome.
Made sure of that.
We have our second workshop tomorrow.
Tell us more.
So tomorrow we will be at a communications company. So they do internet and phone services. And so we will, this is the one where they're going to kind of get a hands-on look at fiber splicing, and they'll get to do some fiber splicing. They'll get to do a marketing kind of demo activity, and then they'll get to look at some of the work with the mapping systems that they have. And then I'm going to do the snowball activity, and we're going to do that based on their strengths and what their kind of passions are outside of school. And then we have 4 mock job interview stations set up with staff from the communications company and the library and my community partner. And while the kids that aren't in the mock job interviews, we're going to be playing job interview Jenga while they're waiting. And then we're also going to, I have a card game called Awkward Moment that one of my staff members here is going to be playing with them. So we'll have that going on while they're waiting. And so that's tomorrow. Whew.
That is, but is that all day? That's not all day.
Yeah,
is it?
it's
It
9
is.
to 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
So-
so excited to hear about it.
Yeah, they go 9 to 3. It's a lot to have that many kids for that long.
Will you post? You'll post on the COP for us?
Yeah, I will. We'll take pictures and I'll post on the COP and see what they learned. This one should be very interesting because I don't think they have a grasp of what types of jobs at all are probably available at a communications company. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the awareness will be pretty clearly defined coming in and leaving.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Anybody else? I'm trying to catch up on the chat.
A lot to keep up on today.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Laura, we have 15 registered.
What was your registration versus attendance last time? For what? I'm not talking to you.
Oh gosh. I think we had 16 and 12 showed up.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so and we had 20 at the beginning of this week, but this is our spring break. So we have 50, and we call the week before. We call them all the week before and confirm. And so we'll see if 15 show up. Even 12 is a lot.
Diane, I'm smiling at your post. Roxanne, do you want to tell us more? Probably, tell us more. I shouldn't ask, just tell us more. That's great.
So Roxanne, I'm gonna try to recap a little bit for her too while she types, and hopefully I'm saying this right, Roxanne. So Roxanne's kind of looking at that passion project idea as well, and that's her cloud right now. That's what I like since we're using that analogy. But she's been working with the school, and there's also an after school program she's been looking at, but she's also looking at maybe even doing it outside of the school, and just kind of finding a way to facilitate them into identifying what they're passionate about and then possibly creating a project from that. And do those types of things. I'm really like not saying it as awesome as it was the other day, but I just thought and I had never heard of passion projects before, even when Josie had mentioned it too. But it just sounds like a really cool idea of something that they can work in. It's kind of, she said, kind of taking that concept of the Genius Hour and maybe putting that together as a passion project. Roxanne, hopefully I didn't mess that up too much.
And Josie, you posted yours on the Genius Hour post, right? Yeah, so that's cool. Be great if we could collect a bunch of these passion project things, outlines, lessons, activities, etc. That's awesome. And I think it goes with the connected learning stuff too.
Totally. Yeah. And the kids are so excited about it. Like I said, when I introduced them to it today, and already their ideas are like, I have one group that's going to do like teach skateboarding to little kids, and one group that wants to do like a suicide prevention project with middle schoolers. So it's interesting as my whole group, or a lot of the students that I'm working with, the high school students, want to actually go into the middle schools and work with the middle schoolers for their passion projects.
I was going to ask, just because we had talked a little bit about apathy and that detachment, and using a term like passion project with kids experiencing that, if that just what their response would be. Well,
out of the whole group, I had one kid that was pretty apathetic. So I have 20 kids. One was like, I don't want to do this. But then I found out that he was in a fight with his girlfriend. So I think if I give him a couple of days, he'll get on board. But really, I think a lot of the apathy, and this is kind of what I learned from that Get Focused, Stay Focused site visit, is that like as educators, we're not connecting the students to the why. Like we're saying, you have to do this because I said so. and there's no why behind it. And that's that whole skills-based or connected learning, you know, like we need, as educators or librarians, we need to be able to connect them to the why. Otherwise, they're like, there's no point in me learning the Pythagorean theorem because I'm never going to use it, you know. But if you can say it's not about that formula, you can always look up that formula. It's about learning to solve the problem. It's a problem solving skill. So there's your skill. And then, so I think that we can address that apathy with the teaching that skills-based or connected learning. So.
I'm so thinking of just my high school algebra teacher.
I know, right? You just learn it because, and now I hate math.
Math and science, it made no sense to me, and it wasn't related to real life.
Yes,
absolutely.
And it was
I
that
still can't do math.
You need to learn this because it's the rule and the setup that you're in. Yeah.
Can I make a confession here? So I took meteorology three. See, I'm not good with numbers. 3 times in college, and dropped out of that class 3 times because I'm like, we still can't do anything about the weather. I don't care. and this was just a few years ago.
I have to say, you guys are breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart. I was a math and science teacher.
My dad.
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how many times I hear, "Oh, I hated those 2 subjects." However, I always taught algebra is problem solving. It's like peeling the layers off an onion, and you can use it to think. That's what I would say.
It's a puzzle, right? Like it's a puzzle. So
it is. It's a total puzzle. And, you know, I think the testing and everything that they're undergoing now, everything's to push the formulas instead of taking the time to really have fun and enjoy it. And that was my experience before. I hope they can get back to that again.
Can you be my
take time.
Yeah. But that's exactly what this project is about, right? I mean, it's taking those things, math, science, history. I mean, there's plenty of people who don't like history or don't like English language arts, all of it, and helping to make real connections in order to figure out what you want to do. Because Karen, imagine if you wanted to be a meteorologist or if that was your passion, that could be your passion project. But it's not, but it could have been. That's awesome. So I see that 2 things. One is Eric, I'm sorry, I skipped over it before. Eric, you had mentioned meeting with the principal. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? I don't know if you have to type or if you can use microphone or phone. And then, well, Eric, I think maybe we got some typing. Oh, cool. On that computer class, where did it go? I keep scrolling. There it is. Oh, so the it's not a class that's it's not a computer class, it's a program. It's a piece of software. Or an application. Do I have that right? Am I reading that right? Got it. Yeah. Interesting. And then someone said, Kate, I'd like to hear more about that. Who said that? Who wrote that? What was that about?
Me. I was curious how you're linking apathy and autonomy.
Yeah. I think it's for my support and interest in project-based learning, and also having my 3 kids are in project-based learning model schools, so like I've been able to see that from the parent perspective as well. And And that's actually something that's inspired me to look at how do we bring all this stuff together? Like, how do we weave all this like social emotional learning, 21st century skills, like 4 C's, leadership, restorative, like what do we do with all that to like pull it into something cohesive? And so that's why I'm talking to a lot of people about service learning, which is a subset of project-based learning. So, project-based learning is where the kids engage in a project, around like what they, around the material that they're learning. And at my kids' schools, they talk about something called voice and choice. So they like to give their students voice and choice in the projects. And so there's a framework. There's like, I like to use like bumper lanes, like on a bowling alley. It's kind of like, we want to keep them moving in this direction, right? But like what they can do within those boundaries is where they can exercise voice and choice. And so like when I go, part of the model at the schools that my kids go to are these public exhibitions of their work. And so they, the parents are invited, but so is the general public. And these kids take this work that they've been doing as young as like 6th graders. They take this work that they've been doing and they lay out everything that they have worked on for this project and under this particular topic. And then they present to whoever comes up to their table, like about what they did. And when you watch them do that, there's no apathy there. Like they're engaged because they got to exercise age appropriate autonomy in what they were learning. And so I think that there's a direct relationship there. And I'm not saying we should like turn kids loose completely, but like the more autonomy you can give them, and I think that's also part of that executive function and a social emotional learning piece is like to start exercising autonomy, right? I think one of the mistakes our culture makes is to like keep kids in these rigid frameworks, and then they turn 18 and we're like, you're an adult, see you later, good luck with that. And like that doesn't set them up for success, but like to give them increasing amounts of autonomy as they're growing through this incredibly dynamic period of their lives, I think is an antidote to some of that apathy that you see. So so that's really like I'm interested in like figuring out how to, and this is what I was talking with Rotary about today, is figuring out how to take like the service learning model and create out of classroom, community engaged, community driven, community inspired opportunities for that sort of like autonomous learning to happen. So.
There are some connected learning projects in that project, that original, that do that. So I'm going to post some of those and maybe you can connect to some of those. We have just a couple more minutes. Are there any general questions or thoughts or comments from anybody? Hopes, wishes, dreams?
I'm proud of you all.
I know, it's so exciting. No, that's it. So, oh, the planning template. Wait, Abby, what's that?
I mentioned earlier that there are a few people that are interested in service learning.
Oh, cool.
Diane and Tyler had an interesting Zoom just on esports. So I was just saying that I could facilitate with Todd a little mini session for Josie and Kate, and Connie was interested in service learning. So anyone else who's interested, just email me and I will.
Maybe we should do that next week.
Sure.
What do you think? And then we'll do restorative practices the month after, because that's right, because we've got you all right here. Todd, you okay with that? Abby, you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because why just limit it?
Is it relevant to everyone? I mean, yes, it's helpful to everyone. Josie says she can't come next week. Also. All
right, we will figure this out offline, but I'm thinking that it might be really useful to everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's figure it out. And then the planning template, I'm coaches, you can tell me if I'm right about this. We decided to wait on the planning template for a month or so because we're in a different schedule than we have been in other cohort groups. So we're waiting until, we thought May, I think we would send out the planning template. If Rochelle, if you really, really, really want to see it, we can send it, we can post it.
It won't change your life, Rochelle.
No, and we didn't want to freak anyone out by having like, oh, look at all this stuff. We wanted people to have their clouds and be able to stay in that, the great way that Abby explained it. Yeah.
I think Rochelle already has her own planning template ready to go anyway.
That's awesome. Well, will you share that planning template with everybody else?
I heard my name. I apologize. I was
That's all right.
having a side conversation.
I was saying that I really like that cloud analogy or whatever it was. Rochelle, do you really have a planning template?
I'm working on one. The school, I have a teaching background, so I do like everything lesson plan style anyway. But the school I'm working with, they want to possibly try to do the big event at the end of April or early May. So I was just wondering if there were specifics on there that you guys wanted versus just what we come up with.
Yeah, I think coaches, I think that not anything, but it fits. I mean, the planning template has ideas for how you'll get the word out, who you'll partner with, what your timeline is. I haven't looked at it most recently, but right.
And Rochelle, I was in a similar spot as you, and I wound up getting the planning template, and I already had created a planning template, and they were very similar. So, yeah.
Yeah. And we are telling people that you don't have to use that exact planning template. It's just to give you a framework for what you might think about. So, but if you would like it, we can definitely send it to you. All right. Well, we are over time by 60 seconds. So thank you, everyone. This was awesome hearing the successes and what people have been working on. We will see some of you next week talking about something. We're going to have some sort of very specific conversation, either restorative practices. I've talked to a couple of people about other sort of middle school kinds of stuff, or that last one, service learning.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.